It's time to be woke. Take off your shades. It helps see through the smoke. Cause the wicked hide behind the cloak. And if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked. So listen up, cause this hair of the dog. What's real, what ain't? Is this the fog or smog? Cause there's a difference when you breathe it in. So don't let the corporate media take you for a spin. This that morning show, they put you in the know. So I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, go, go. Yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the song, we out here, yeah. Speeding.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. It is Friday. Yay! You made it. Another week down the tubes. Heading into the weekend. Kind of interesting weather patterns here in central Ontario and Canada. We've had a very dry spring since April. The grass has been a rather crunchy color of yellow for quite a while, and this massive rainstorm that has hit a lot of the rest of the continent has finally made its way to us in what looks like the form of 5 straight days of rain. Right. So although we needed it, I guess this is another case of, be careful what you wish for. So, what are you going to do? Hunker down inside, watch the little drops run down your window like tears as you look outside. Anyways, we've got a awesome show for you today. We're going to take a little break from the political sphere, and we're going to talk about little green men. And if you don't know the reference, it's because you're too young. But that leads me up to the introduction of my lovely, talented co-host, Ms. Carrie Barber. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Andy. As you're talking about the rain, I'm like, oh, goodness, Andy, please make me a sad rock video with you looking out the window in the rain coming.
Yes, with a nice piano song. In like D minor, the saddest chord.
A rock ballad.
An 80s rock ballad, hair rock ballad by Firehouse.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. I gotta have it. Well, let's make an ad for it. So
I haven't had a haircut in like 8 months, so I've got the regular hair.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I gotta say this or Jackie will call me. Please, if you're watching on Fred Hampton Leftist on our YouTube, make sure that you hit like, subscribe, and hit that little bell so that you are always informed on all the programs coming down on Fred Hampton Leftist. There are so many great shows. Please do that. House of Public Discord, thank you for joining us and for featuring us on your podcast. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, thank you so much for taking us with you. We appreciate it. And should you want to catch us live and join the conversation with everybody else, please feel free to do that. So we are on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, all across the social medias. We're syndicated across a bunch of different networks. So join in the conversation. We always try to engage people and make sure that your comments are read on air. And it's a family meeting. So this topic was a viewer request. And I've been putting it off. We mentioned it once because the Department of Defense they have a mandate to come out with their report with what they know, what evidence they have, and what they don't know by June, the end of June. So we are on the last Friday of June. So that report's expected today. May or may not. So we are doing. Let's be honest. I looked across all the headlines all week, and I just got so depressed. So I'm like, let's do politics in a different way. And so the DoD report is going to feature highly on today's program. But first, we're going to get into some. This is snarky fun for me, and I hope you will enjoy it too. Sidney Powell. You remember Sidney Powell, the Kraken? Release the Kraken. Yeah. Sidney Powell, who was the brief but high-profile legal champion for the Trump administration when they were trying to challenge election rulings across the state. Sidney Powell said, I forget what she was saying, we're going to bring the wrath of God or something. She was right there with all the hyperbole, but so there are two different things that Sidney Powell is facing right now that you may not be aware of. I posted the links to it, but kudos to this particular gentleman, an investigative reporter named Grant Stern, Stern. Grant Stern. He was the first one to actually bring up this issue because Michael Flynn, Flynn's brother, and the Kraken, Sidney Powell, started a charity, and they were taking money from Trump supporters, well-meaning Trump supporters, and it turns out they were just fleecing them, or allegedly fleecing them. And this reporter uncovered some irregularities in the formation of these charities. And Mike Flynn has since said he stepped down. His brother's still there. Sidney Powell is scrambling. So what they actually did was they started a 501c3 and were funneling money to a PAC, which you cannot do in that kind of relationship.
That's
So,
like the one thing you can't do, definitely can't do if you're a nonprofit.
Right. I mean, it's on the IRS website, pretty big and repeated multiple times. The IRS even has this little cartoon with a bald eagle that will take you through it and make it so super simple. So the world's greatest attorney, Sidney Powell, missed all of this. So now she is being investigated because of this work of Grant Stern. She and Flynn are being investigated in the state of Florida for grift, some serious grift. So that's the first thing that Powell is.
This is kind of like someone on the sex offenders list trying to get room and board at a daycare center.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. So well, that's the first case. The other case that's a little more high profile is the Dominion voting machines. They have decided to bring a defamation suit against Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and a number of other folks who were again championing this election fraud thing. So Dominion is pissed, and rightly so. But what was interesting for me about the case is Sidney and Giuliani are going with the freedom of speech. There are limits to your freedom of speech, and defamation is where it comes in, right? So you cannot cross the line in that way. So freedom of speech, just so everyone's clear, it's only 2 sentences in the Constitution, should be pretty easy reading for everybody. But freedom of speech protects you from the government, not me, right? So if you go out there and say some shit about me that is damaging to my reputation or is limits my ability to find work or that sort of thing, I can bring a defamation suit against you, which is what Dominion has done. So what was hilarious to me in their argument of free speech is these are 2 attorneys, right? They should know what free speech limitations are. But then it goes back to, just like doctor, just like lawyer, the top of the class and the bottom of the class are still called lawyer. So there you go. There you go. So, hey, good morning, John Kemper joining us first time. First time I've seen you pop up. So he's all about Medicare for all in Chicago. So yes, absolutely. And man, you're challenging me with this. Seth from Namacon. He says, top of the morning to yous. Good morning. And he also says, comic book evil runs in America. Doesn't it? It's just so ridiculous at this point. It's sad, but comical, right? Who knew Idiocracy was a documentary and not just a silly movie?
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah. So those are my big ones for right now. I'm watching the Dominion case, and I'm literally laughing about all of it because it's so ridiculous. So, Andy, as
keep
much
your
as we
eyes on
talk-
keep your eyes on Four Seasons Landscaping. You know,
Four Seasons Landscaping in the back alley somewhere next to the crematorium.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wait for the press briefing. But with all the policy that we talk about, we can't get through to Congress, and particularly on the argument with Medicare for All. We've seen Rashida Tlaib and Jayapal and all of these people switch their narrative lately to access instead of healthcare as a right. So this is where their messaging and everything is changing, which is why the Medicare for All events are so important. And I think it just goes to show that there are so many avenues at our disposal to really make impactful change. So the Medicare for All thing, when we get out in the streets and we say, hey, no, you cannot do this, you cannot withhold this from us. And then I posted a tweet yesterday, and I really feel that this has merit. When public money is funding health insurance for every member of Congress, every state official, and every local and municipal official in your state and others, while they're telling us no, that's unequal protection. And that is a constitutional violation. And they should know this, right? Do we know it? So all of these tools are at our disposal, from the Dominion case to the case we talked about yesterday with freedom of speech and social media actually acting as the cat's paw for politicians who don't like what we're saying about elections. Yeah, so all of these things go into play, which kind of leads us into our topic. But Seth Hernamcon is all over the chat, so I gotta say this. He says no redress of grievances. That's absolutely right. No representation, but we have taxation. Right. That's kind of where we're at. And then John Kemper. Okay, John, this was a backhanded compliment, but I'll take it. He says, love and respect to all Fred Hampton leftists, you guys too. Well, John, we are part of the Fred Hampton leftist network, so we'll take that compliment. We'll take it. Thank you. So that's funny. All right. So our topic today, it's, okay, Andy, you and I are a little bit older, and I remember growing up where everybody was making fun of the UFO people and the Bigfoot people, and it was you were laughed off as ridiculous. But now today we have pilots and high-level officials and regular folks who are being listened to with credibility. This is a huge take, a 180 from where we were before, right? Like I am now about an hour and a half from Roswell, and I got to tell you, those people are super excited about the DoD report that is imminent. So,
right.
Jason B says, "Can I call into the show to talk UFOs and aliens?" Jesse, you can type in the chat and everybody can see it, and I will read it here, and we will have that discussion. We don't have a phone number for you. And Jesse B says, "I am a UFO expert and love Fred Hampton list." Well, Jesse, you've come to the right place. Go ahead and give us your information. And I did post a lot of links on this that I went through. And what I thought was interesting, Andy, is, okay, so the reason the Pentagon and the Department of Defense has to come out with this report was this one little sentence that was in the CARES Act. The Trump administration put this in. So go ahead and thank Trump and his folks for putting this one line in, that they had to issue this report. What do you know? What do you not know? And you need to brief Congress before the end of June 2021. Right? So that is why this subject is all coming out refreshed. So I'm looking at C-SPAN to see if they have those hearings, or if it's going to be a security briefing and we're not allowed to know what members of the Security Council were briefed on, and we'll get a redacted report or whatever. So I'm watching that. But what I thought was interesting is UFOs and testimonies from witnesses have been on C-SPAN many times, including, as I mentioned, the people of Roswell. That was 1987. And then there was another particular gentleman who, very credible, he wrote a book and he was on C-SPAN with an interview about that book. So I posted two links where you can go back and watch those. But I thought it was just very interesting that it's definitely not the first time C-SPAN has covered this for as a governmental reporting agency. It's been on there quite a few times. So Jesse says, I'm home. Well, come on in. Tell us what you got, Jesse. So here's where I wanted to do the show. Rather than just reporting on the information, now that we're in this space where we are actually having more of an open conversation, what does this mean for you? And I don't want to couch this in terms like the squad is doing and, what does access to food mean for your family? Because that's a bullshit thing. What I'm truly asking is, we've had these questions to contemplate for years, like from a religious point of view, or from climate change, or social oligarchy. What does this look like? And you can go in so many directions. So I want to post this to our audience this morning. Let's say we have credible proof that there are beings from an extraterrestrial, not of this world. We have some credible evidence. Does this change anything for you? I mean, you still got to make your rent, you still got to go to work, you still got to pay your bills. So what would this actually change for you if we started to have our trusted governmental officials coming out saying, yeah, we've got evidence. So I pose that question. So Andy,
Well,
I'm going to put you on the spot. What does this mean for you?
Well, I think that it's going to mean different things for generations, right? Like people of our age, or older, we grew up with, the Hollywood representations of what, the implications are of this with, huge box office movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind or E.T. or any of these big blockbuster movies that dealt with aliens coming to Earth and what have you, and all of this stuff, right? So we've done that thing where, and we've always talked about American propaganda and the narrative and what we're supposed to believe or what they want us to believe, and there's always a case to be made for that. Is that the same? It's representative in the UFO phenomenon, or what they call the UAP phenomenon now, right? So we were always meant to believe that people that saw these things, they were either crackpots, or they were weather phenomena or weather balloons, or these were fake, somebody with a pie plate and a string in their backyard taking pictures. So there's a lot of that we had to unfold as we were growing up in our generation, right? And the secrecy behind Area 51, all of this stuff. So we now walk into this time period where there's been a about face from government officials. And so the question obviously you have to ask is why? Why is that now going to be different? Is there an agenda behind that? Or is it people are just curious, right? And I think that's a broader conversation that we need to have, because, everything's done for a reason, especially in the US. And it's, more times than not, it's a nefarious reason. So what's the motivation behind going public and talking about this on this scale, right?
Do you think it's something more than the mandate in the CARES Act? Do you think that maybe this is a distraction?
Possibly. There's also, let's consider that, and whether you believe that the Earth or the US specifically is in the end stage of capitalism or the final stages of capitalism before it self-destructs, and you understand the capitalist mentality of expanding markets always and making more and more, and you know, we need growth, but that's counter to the growing narrative of trying to save the planet and understanding that we can't continue this way if we want to, you know, ensure our survival as a species. Well, capitalists be capitalists, right? They're always looking for ways to fix things that don't actually cost them any money, right? If you're, and of course, I'm just floating this as a possibility, but if you're, you know, in the powers that be currently, and there's pressure from, growing pressure from the society to change your ways, or, you know, the guillotines and the pitchforks are coming out, and you want to, or you suspect that there are beings out there that certainly, if they can hop, skip, and jump across the solar system or across the galaxy and get here, that is there a possibility they might have technology to help us, right? To take carbon out of the atmosphere or to lower the temperature or what have you, right? I obviously that has no merit. It has no basis in fact, but it is, you know, you can't deny that, certainly considering what the capitalists believe the markets can fix. And is there a solution that doesn't cost anybody money? Currently, no, there isn't, right? So there's that, right?
So, okay, so it sounds like Seth Nomicon agrees with you. He says, totally, we need free energy, housing, food, and healthcare. But then Jesse B, our UFO expert who jumped in this morning, he put in something called the Aerial School. Apparently there was a school in Zimbabwe where there was an event, some sort of event, and the school children had some sort of experience. And he says in the area school, the aerial school children received messages that technology and environmental collapse will doom us. Okay, so let's say that that is true, that event happened and that message came through. So it almost sounds like a Star Trek, sorry, Star Wars people, but Star Trek non-intervention thing. So they can give us kind of, hey, don't stick your hand in the fire, you're going to get burned, but they will not do anything about it. That's shitty. That's really shitty. And then I don't understand that. So, like, for example, if you're a scientist working on a petri dish and you don't recognize autonomy and consciousness in the petri dish, you don't give a shit, right? But if you are a scientist studying, like I was reading a report on salamanders. Salamanders under climate change have adapted in Appalachia, but not necessarily in other ways. And as things expand, because salamanders are obviously, they need lots of moisture, they're going to be affected. So scientists are actually advocating for the environment on behalf of the subject that they're studying. So are we saying that these particular beings are like, yeah, fuck it, they're just, okay, see ya. When you're done with that planet, we're just gonna go ahead and study other things, which could be a possibility, because let's be honest, the Earth will go on and species will survive long after we're gone.
Right.
So maybe that's the take. And Jim Bird says, unless it messes with my life positively or negatively, meh. Kinda, yeah. I'm kind of feeling that a little bit. Okay, and Sestranam kind of he seems to be on your take, Andy. He says they're sending spaceships to Mars, but can't provide basic needs of people. Well, again, Petri dish. This is the Elons and the Bezos and, you know, Congress. They have a serious disconnect. We are a nebulous thing, but not individuals. Not individuals.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So
that's 100% true, and that's part of the problem, right, with our society, that the powers that be and the ones that have the ability to make decisions, or at least to influence the decision makers, look at society as a whole instead of just individual people, right? And there's reason to believe, or at least a case to be made, that that's how they got power in the first place, right?
Exactly. So there was one article that I wanted to call attention to, and this one was I found this on news18.com, and the headline is Pentagon just admitted to testing UFO wreckage, but what did they discover? So I was a little skeptical when I was reading this, but they mentioned a metal, uh, a DIA report, a 154-page report of test results, scientific test results, regarding a mysterious memory metal called nitinol, Nitinol. And I thought that this was just absolutely ridiculous, because it's the memory part of what they're talking about. This is a particular alloy that, when heated and refolded, will take the shape that it had before, kind of like memory foam mattress, but it's a metal. And I looked it up, and this is actually true. This is verifiable, and it's true. It says in this entire report, it talks about they found these from an unknown source, and were doing some research on it. So Namicon, when you're talking about the skunk work projects, this would be one of them, where some of this material allegedly has come from an unknown source, and they've been doing some scientific studies. So I'm going to post this link, have at it. But I just thought it was interesting, because some of the stuff now, where you would only find it in MUFON websites and kind of the dark web spaces, now is right out in the middle of everything. And yeah, okay, so Seth brings up Bob Lazar, knew that metal and the new element used in UFOs. So here's where it gets really fun for me. I am 45 minutes from where Bob Lazar allegedly works. So it's kind of funny. Yeah, everybody here is like, yeah, it's a thing. It's absolutely a thing. But outside of New Mexico, unless you've got Arizona and parts of Colorado, apparently, and Alaska, the rest of the country is like sketchy on it. But here's what was interesting. The Department of Defense, this report that they're getting ready to issue is like 4 years late. Britain, Denmark, France, and a few other countries released their reports and made all of their things public. And what I thought was responsible and interesting was, they said, we don't know where these things come from. We can't prove extraterrestrial. We can't prove that it's not US based or from some other country, that type of thing. So I thought it was really interesting the way that they worded it. And we're starting to see that echo right now from the Pentagon, particularly with the videos that were released from the USS Nimitz in San Diego, and then test flights from Tallahassee, where they're saying we can't prove that it's extraterrestrial in origin. I think that's the way to do it, because how can you prove it other than you eliminate, all these lists.
Let's also remember the timeline, right? Like human beings are been on our planet Earth for a very small portion of time, considering how far back, when you look about the Big Bang Theory, for lack of something else to describe it, at the origins of our universe, and the place where, when life first appeared on this planet and developed to what it was going to develop until finally us, right? That blip in time that we've been here is a fraction of all of the rest of that, right? A tiny fraction. And even in our existence, that our technological advances really have only occurred over the last, however many decades, to the point where we are now. And whatever however advanced we think we are as a society. I've always been under the impression that the reason why we can't do what other species may possibly be able to do is that we haven't been at it long enough, right? That the reason we can't conceive about these different things, especially like the memory metal that you were talking about earlier, is because we haven't thought enough about it, or our minds don't have the capabilities of understanding that yet, right? Because they haven't developed enough, or the concept hasn't been introduced to us, right? You don't know what you don't know. But if you think of it in terms of time and the Industrial Revolution and when that occurred, that was a generation or two ago. So hasn't been a long time. So we're still within our infancy in terms of technology and all of that stuff, right? And we're just trying to understand the world around us in our limited way, whereas the other species, if they do exist, may have lapped us 400 million times over, right? And so that's what we're dealing with currently.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, and I want to address two comments that came in. So Jim Bird is saying, I have the same reasoning on space research. Solve the Earth's problems first, then invest in space travel. And then Seth Renomicon says, all of these capitalist cavemen want to be king, not community minded. Okay, so let's set that up in a pragmatic thought process, right? So number one, I point to the evidence of discovery of, I think there was a fish that was caught that was supposed to have been extinct like 400 million years ago or whatever, and they just caught it. So this goes to the human ego. We believe we know everything that is knowable about our environment, and we're full of it. We don't. But then on the other aspect of it, space travel to me is represented, or NASA's work and the global community space station. That work to me is representative of prior conversations we've had about art and music classes. That those activities actually spurn discovery that comes into the markets that we have now. For example, fossil fuels. Fossil fuels were a necessity to get off of kerosene. So we made that switch. And now we're at another point where if we don't get off fossil fuels, it's an extinction level event, right?
Yeah,
we see that.
We're due.
So these activities where we do engage in experimentation and all of these things help us. The problem is, again, going back to art and music, because we are not, like Seth Namicon just said, the capitalist cavemen want to be king instead of doing the research and exploration as a society. We are forced into basic survival, paying rent, getting food, making sure we can get transportation to that job. All of those sorts of things are actually working against us in this current situation, because, and let's call it out, the unregulated, unchecked, addicted capitalists put us in this situation. So I think this is where we started out talking about UFOs, aliens, and all of this sort of thing, but it really is a conversation about all the things we always talk about equality and being able to advance as a society, because we're not focused on basic shelter. Now we can get into those higher minded thinking exercises, like the Human Genome Project was put out onto the web, and anybody who wanted to participate in it could, and they did, and they solved it. But we can't do that now because pandemic, healthcare, evictions, lack of income, all of those sorts of things. We have to focus on basic low level thoughts. So
right.
I don't know, Andy, is this
Well, no, you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, when we look at our society and what's valued, right, and especially in America. They're, you're inundated with ideas and concepts that you're judged by the number of things that you have, right? The number of possessions that you have acquired. It has nothing to do with, a higher, greater good in terms of, helping other people or anything like that. It's the society that embraces the Kardashians, right? And so that's prevalent, but it's people just are inundated with that 24/7. And how do you distract people so that they can't critically think about their own situations, as you don't give them enough time, right? You make people have to work 2-3 jobs to survive, and struggle, and not be able to afford anything, and not to be able to afford any higher education, and basically just try to live their lives in a miserable life, and nothing ever changes, right? Because you're completely distracted your entire existence, right? Quite honestly, if I was an alien species and I came to Earth and looked down, it was like, ooh, do we really want to help them? Or should we just observe the end?
Well, I think that's really what it's coming down to, right? If you're an extraterrestrial scientist, and I'm assuming that you're going to put scientists on observation posts, right? We would be one. You're observing the change in climate and atmospheric conditions precipitated by the activity of the indigenous population, right? So
Right.
it's a
Well, the
high
other thing
school
is
paper.
people's experience with this is from Hollywood, right? So, you get these aliens that come to Earth, they look like us, they talk a little bit like us, they speak English, well, how did they learn that? We were
Right.
basing our what we would think um, life forms from another planet would be, but we're also assuming that they would be carbon based, have the ability to speak, look like us, and be kind of, you know, uh, have the same set of morals or standards or whatever, right? When you talk about a different part of the universe where, two separate species, start to grow as species, could be completely different in any way. Would we be able to even comprehend them, right? Like, just all of these questions that are taken for granted that we'll be able to communicate with aliens from another planet is a little presumptuous as far as I'm concerned, right?
Absolutely could be. So I want to get to some of these comments, and Cosmic Jerry is sending us robots and coffee. Thank you for that. And then, okay, so the question has come up about Bob Lazar. Is he lying about? So if you haven't caught the Bob Lazar story, some of it is really compelling, and I will say, based on my background, there's some of it I went, okay, this is interesting. This is very interesting. Other parts, when Bob Lazar was being discredited by the government, how many times do we see that in politics, right? So that was very familiar to me too. So I don't know if he is 100% on board, but he's got a really interesting, compelling story. I will say that. And then Microsoft Word Technical Support joins us, says, I have one possession left. It is the pass I have for this one job. Well, at least you have one job, not 4 or 5 like the rest of us. It's crazy. So thank you for joining us. And Holly joins us again. She says hello. Boy, the chat is going off. So Stephanomicon says, perhaps David Icke was right, and we are led by a lizard race, and that's why we have a inhumane government. Okay, so I have seen that before. We're run by the lizard people, but that is also a deflection. That's our way of dealing with watching people just like us fall over that moral edge, right? It's easy to say that they are not like us, they're lizard people, but no, we all have the capacity for that kind of cruelty. So I'm not going with the lizard people. But with the alien thing, you do have to wonder the question, what if we're food?
What was
What
that
if
question, Carrie?
we're food? And I always wondered about that. It's that I don't know. That's kind of one of those things that I wonder about. So Holly says, hi KRTD Media. Hey Holly, we are not with KRTD anymore, so you may be lost. But thank you. Um, yeah, and Seth says they all believe the same. That, that's true. So I don't know. I'm eagerly awaiting this. Oh wait. Is Microsoft Word technical support or KRTD who got banned? You came back as something else, really? Okay, well that's fun. Um, it's like a bad ex-girlfriend you cannot. Okay. Anyway, so other than that, lizards and tyrants. This is kind of where we're at. So yeah, I don't know. I'm waiting to see the report. I'm not highly enthusiastic that there's going to be anything new. So if you're in the camp that you have always believed and always understood that these events are reality, then you're going to see this report one way. If you're skeptical and don't believe it, I think you're also going to see it as something that bolsters your point of view, because when they come back and say we cannot prove that these are extraterrestrial or other things or can't be explained, then you're going to take it that way. So I
Right.
don't see anything.
And I think there's a lot to be said in terms of if there ever was a confrontation with aliens. Not I don't mean that, but at least trying to communicate with them. We would want the representatives of who represents us to ask the proper questions, right? you know like for example, what color's your ketchup, right? Like, I mean, the tough hard questions that we need to know, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm not sure how far we can go on this particular story until more evidence is out there. And what I'm really interested to see is the form that this report takes. Is it going to be heavily redacted? And then the briefing to members of Congress, are we going to be privy to that? I would say probably not, which is going to, leave even more speculation out there, because it's not the true transparency that other agencies and other governments have taken. So I don't know, Andy. In the end, typically you're always right. It's more just distraction.
well,
So
it might be, but I would say, even if we got portions or pieces of this report leaked to us, if it wasn't meant for general public's view, it will at least be more than we've always ever gotten, which was zero. So I think that anything that we could possibly find out will maybe not tell us much, but it'll certainly be fascinating, right? Like I think that when the 60 Minutes folks aired their part on this, that was one of their most popular shows of the season, because it is fascinating. It does, it triggers the imagination of people that are stuck, in a place that they don't get to imagine a lot of stuff, right? They don't have the time to do it. And I think that's it's a cool thing, unless it imminently leads to our destruction, which might be bad. But it's maybe growing as a race of people. So the possibilities are endless, obviously, but it certainly is fascinating, and we should keep our eyes on this uh, potential prize if it comes down the pike for us.
and I think you really encapsulate it. So I know from my experience being in Chicago and just so many people, so many things going on, good, bad, ugly, all of it. And then coming out to a place where it's very sparsely populated. Uh, First time we were here, we could see all the stars. You do have that sense of wonder, and you cannot have that opportunity to unplug and be who you are. So I think this is maybe a moment to reflect on that. So Holly says, I believe we're not alone, but we're getting a hard pass, understandably. Yeah, I can see that. And then Leslie says, isn't the CIA pushing this? Actually, no, Leslie, this was part of the CARES Act. It was one line in the CARES Act that required the DoD to issue a report by the end of June. So that's why we're having these conversations now. June's almost over. We're waiting for the report. And Seth Namicon says, yeah, hey, look at that UFO. Well, we don't give you basic welfare or housing or healthcare. Absolutely, absolutely. So Jesse B, the UFO expert, did give us some homework, and I'm going to take him up on this one. He says James Fox's documentary called The Phenomenon came out about 6. I'm going to carve out some downtime, stop doing work, just relax, and I think I'm going to watch that. So thank you for that, Jesse. I appreciate that. Yeah, so stay tuned and let's see what happens. Not just with the DoD and the UFO report, but this Dominion case and the Kraken, which cracks me up every time. Release the Kraken.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So Seth Namicon, if you have not already signed up for the Medicare for All marches coming to a city near you, for Seth and everyone else, please do that. They're releasing information about who's going to be the MC in each city, and they give you really nice tools. If there is an event planned already for your city, you've got plenty of time to organize one. They will help you advertise it. And I just want to say one word about this was a personal thing that kind of bothered me. I saw this on Twitter, and Twitter is such a hateful place already. But there were some leftists criticizing the messaging that was coming out because there was a little bit of a typo. And I try to explain to that person, because it happens to me, Andy knows it happens a lot. The person who may have done that particular ad has a disability with their vision. And they have inadvertently, being snarky and mean girlish, made fun of a disabled person for an honest mistake. And Andy knows I do it all the time, because technology is great, but technology is not foolproof, and it doesn't necessarily compensate for my loss of vision. So I have typos all the damn time, and I don't mean to. So this is just another one, as we talked about, as Holly said, we're getting a hard pass from the universe because we tend to be shitty. Let's not be shitty to each other, particularly when we are fighting for Medicare for all, something that should be a human right, not access actual health care, to see a doctor, not a piece of paper, an insurance policy, but access to your doctor directly. Let's not be shitty people because we didn't organize it, or we're not a headliner, or we're not getting the fame and accolades that we feel we deserve. This is a moment where everybody needs to quiet their ego, get involved, and fight for somebody you don't know, because the person you save is going to be yourself. So that's
Right.
my soapbox.
And do good for society. Right.
Yeah.
It's just the whole part of that one expression that came out of the Sanders 2020 campaign, which was, are you willing to fight for someone you don't know? Right. Because if you aren't, then there's a pretty good chance that there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to fight for you.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I think that's it for this particular episode. Thank you so much for everybody who joined in. And Jesse B, Send us an email at hairofthedogshow@gmail.com because yeah, maybe we need to revisit this one. And since you're our new official show UFO expert, yeah, let's have a different conversation
That's right.
on this next
But the question is, how many times have you been abducted?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one. So thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Holly. Hi, Leslie. Good morning. Everyone else who's joined, thank you so much. And we'll be back. This was kind of a lighter episode based on we tackled some really heavy, difficult topics on Monday and Wednesday, and we'll be back at it this coming Monday. But just just kind of a relaxing episode today, and I really enjoyed it. And you guys actually made it so much better, so much better. Seth says thank you both for having these conversations, and Holly says thank you, Fred Hampton left us. Absolutely. So
there you go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's much better. I would say that we really need to keep our eye on this report because I think it's going to be fascinating regardless. I'm just worried about, finding out that these aliens that are showing up are all fucking Yankees fans or something like that. That's my biggest fear, right? But other than that, Carrie Barber, thank you so much for your due diligence again and your wonderful, wonderful reporting and your investigation. As I say every day, it is top notch, and I am privileged to work with you. The rest of you, enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy your weekend, wherever you are. And we will see you back here bright and early on Monday morning. Take care.
We about that, ayy. Bringing the song, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keep it in G.